How would a 2D Sonic game have looked on the Sega Saturn in 1996? We've seen Sonic 3D, the Mega Drive game that was ported to the Sega Saturn. There's the tragic tale of Sonic X-treme, the side projects that were Sonic R and Sonic Jam. But how a true mainline 2D Sonic game may have looked on Sega's 5th gen console is an interesting question, especially given that the Saturn was a sprite moving powerhouse. Sonic Mania gave us some insight, but with Sage Season in full flow, a new fan game has its own interpretation of what Sonic may have looked like on the Sega Saturn. This is Dan the Mega Driver of the Sega Guys, and in this short video I'll be taking a look at Sonic UltraSaturn. Sonic UltraSaturn is a new full game from Un Sonic Ryu and contains several zones, 3 playable characters and the sort of visuals that would have been well beyond the 16-bit original games. UltraSaturn is currently a PC only experience, so sadly it's not something that you'll be able to play on your current real Sega Saturn console, but it looks and sounds something very much in the spirit of what you would see on that console. It also comes with this absolutely gorgeous manual in the PC download that goes through the zones very much like you would see in the 1990s and ends with this Saturn advert which looks, just simply beautiful. This is a full game, so you get over half a dozen zones, you get bosses, and you even get an ending. When you start the game, you're greeted with this fantastic intro that combines elements of both the Sonic CD intro, complete with a remix of the Sonic Boom opening song, and the 1996 Sonic the Hedgehog anime. The two actually work spectacularly well together, with animated cells that appear to have been downscaled in order to give them a look of their era. It's a pretty astounding attention to detail, and even outside of the game, you can see that 90s aesthetic in the commercials created for the demo of this game. Once you're past the title screen, you can see that the game has a save function, not unlike Sonic the Hedgehog 3 and Sonic Mania, where you can similarly track your progress and select your characters. Once into the game proper, you're treated to an extremely solid fan game. Stages are, by and large, created from assets from previous games. Madness Mountain has parts of Mystic Cave, Hilltop, and the Marble Zone. Dynamite Plant is a Sonic the Fighter stage with assets taken from Chemical Plant, Metropolis, Oil Ocean, Scrap Brain, and Wacky Workbench. That said, there's a fair amount of original imagery here, and it keeps things fresh, and everything gels quite nicely together. At this stage, it may not sound like anything new, but there's a few things that already set it apart. The Sonic the Hedgehog sprite in particular is extremely well detailed, very expressive and well animated, far beyond anything seen on the Mega Drive or Genesis, and even in my opinion Sonic Mania, which used the Sonic 1 sprite. In fact, this is probably pretty close to how a post Sonic 3 90s Sonic would have evolved. Beyond that, the HUD seems to be inspired by Sonic X-treme, and there's assorted transparency effects as well. Lots of sprites, including Sonic and Tails and Knuckles themselves, display rotation effects, once again something well beyond the 16-bit games. But the real show stealers are the 3D areas. It's here that you see the sort of sprite work the Sega Saturn and the Sega System 32 excelled at. In the title screen, and indeed the first boss fight, the ground exhibits the sort of infinite planes you'd be familiar with via the VDP2 feature on the Sega Saturn. In these 3D scenes, there's not an abundance of scaling sprites. This isn't sort of an Outrunners level of the visual concept itself, but it certainly seems to be something that the Sega Saturn could have done in its sleep. Sound has also had a bump, with loads of sampled speech from Dr. Robotnik, bringing the boss battles to life a little bit more. Some jingles have had huge jumps in quality, like the Extra Life theme, and by and large the music is great. There is a caveat though, the music is all borrowed from other games. That's not something uncommon with these types of projects, since unless they've got an attached dedicated composer, you can't expect these homebrew devs to do absolutely everything, including make the game and compose all the music. But what's here is, by and large, fantastic. From the Sonic the Fighters tunes to the Sonic 4 boss theme, which actually sounds better here than in its own game, at least in my opinion. So how does it play? Well, it's Sonic. The physics are pretty much intact, and Sonic moves as you'd expect him to. The only issue is, once again, not really specific for this project, is that the level design can make certain stages a bit of a chore. There's acts that often have a single path, but can feel maze-like as you explore them for ages. There's sections here that feel cheap, where you avoid one trap to fall directly into another. In honesty, it feels like it aims for a Sonic CD approach for act design, a game that wasn't exactly the pinnacle of the series in that respect, but overall it just feels messy, which again, these are fan games, so you really do just have to appreciate that the stage design isn't going to be up there with Sonic Team's finest. This can apply to the bosses as well. The first boss, for example, is visually impressive, but it took me a good long time before I realised I needed to bounce his lasers off the stones to hit him. The same can be said of the Crystal Frost Act 1 boss and the Metal Sonic Pitfall, which, to be honest, I'm still not sure how I got past those sections. And then you have things like the Bottomless Pit in the Zone 2 boss area, which can absolutely get in the bin. The Sky Chase Act is fun though, a nice little callback to Sega's sprite scaling greats like Afterburner and Space Area. Overall, this is a great looking Sonic fan game, and it's one that's enjoyable enough to see through to the end. What would a Sonic game have looked like on the Sega Saturn in 1996? This feels pretty close, and while we can't change the past and put this on our Sega Saturn in the 90s, when it may have actually had an impact, and we currently can't play this on our Sega Saturns in the here and now, but it's certainly an experience we can play with smiles on our faces, wondering, what if? If you've played this game, we'd love to hear from you, so get in touch via the comments below or join the discussion on the Sega Guys Discord. If you've enjoyed this video, please give us a like and subscribe. We've just passed 7,000 subscribers, so a huge, massive thank you to everyone who has and still does support us. Until next time, we will see you on the Sega side.